get our head into the game for the day, I would tell you about the week. Some of you might have read USA Today just yesterday. Front page, on the bottom, popular osteoporosis drugs, plural, drugs. The top osteoporosis drugs on the marketplace are now being linked to increased fractures of the hip. The exact reason that they tell you to take these things, they are causing them, and this is nothing new. This has been in the PubMed database for a decade, but it's just so strange that it is finally hitting the mainstream press that osteoporosis drugs increase the risk of fractures. It actually makes the bones brittle. And I mean, can you even stun it now when you see Sally Fields on television? I mean, it's like, well, I mean, all of those ads that they do, that's interesting. But this one here is even more so. Some of you might have read yesterday's Wall Street Journal. And in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, there was something that is so against innate intelligence that we should talk about it. And it's about Monsanto. Monsanto is a biotech company that pretty much does most of the seeds that grow the food for the planet Earth. I don't know if you guys have been reading what's going on with these guys, but what they do is they genetically modify a seed so that the crop that they create is resistant to the chemical called Roundup. Ironically, why would they make such a product? Because then you can put more Roundup on the crop, killing the weeds without killing the crop. Ironically, guess who makes Roundup? Monsanto. So what they're doing so that they can, the issue of course is, what does that do to the consumer of those crops? By the way, the big three are, right on the front page there of the thing, it's cottonseed oil, in a lot of our products, it's corn and soybeans. And when we're not eating these products, it's being fed to our chickens or cows or pigs, whatever we're eating. And the result is we get these chemical residuals. These are the exact words. It says, Monsanto's Roundup Ready soybean is genetically modified to survive dousing by the weed killer made by Monsanto called Roundup. The result is we're getting more chemicals and more chemical exposure than at any time in our history. The problem with this is we pride ourselves on doctors that treat nerve interference. Guess what these chemicals are? They're neuroendocrine disruptors. They screw up the way the nervous system works. Even to the point where some of you might have seen this, all the way back in 2002. There's an article, all these are PubMed articles. I know it's pretty dark, it's hard to see. I'll read it for you. It says, in harm's way, toxic threats to child's development. What they're realizing is that probably, this is all the way back in 2002, this is 8 years ago, that the reason 1 in every 6 American children has a learning disability, the reason why, when this was published, 1 in every 166 American children was officially diagnosed with autism, is because of chemicals in the environment. Just part of which are in vaccinations, but there's so many other chemicals that are in the environment. Some of you might have seen the study. They just did the study last fall. They found 232 separate toxic chemicals in the umbilical blood of newborn babies in America. 232. What they're realizing is babies are developing in a soup of chemicals that are adverse to the neuroendocrine system. This one is just kind of a historic article, but what makes it more to the point, some of you might have seen this one, Current Opinion in Pediatrics, January of 10 this year, is the best article I have ever seen, titled, What Causes Autism? Exploring the Environmental Contribution. This is the best article I've ever seen saying that it is all these chemicals that our children are exposed to that are primarily the big reason that autism is so prevalent. And compared to the 2002 study, when 1 in every 166 American children was autistic, if you guys have the journal Pediatrics last October of 2009, the journal Pediatrics, did you see the new autism number in America? 1 in every 91 children. Do you guys see that? Top journalist category, the journal Pediatrics. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is astonishing is these guys are dissing a chemical called they're dissing these organic halogen chemicals, one of which is this one. It's called atrazine. They now know that atrazine is the #1 chemical put on our food worldwide, not just in our country. If any of you saw this study that just came out, March 1st, 2010, from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America, what this article just flat out goes over is that these chemicals are such powerful neuroendocrine disruptors that they were able to take male frogs, turn them into females, get them pregnant, and let them have babies. They say that these things are the worst chemicals, and they found that it's in essentially all of the food. It's the #1 chemical out there. They find that 100% of humans now have residuals of these chemicals that can be found within their bodies, within their blood, within their cell membranes. So I'm thinking, whoa, and at the very same time this article's coming out, I'm reading the February 27 issue, 2010 of Science News, and it says, weed killers in the crosshairs, concerns prompt re-examinations of atrazine safety. The same chemical. The point of all this is that probably the biggest, in my way of thinking, the biggest difference between chiropractic today versus chiropractic of yesteryear is that yesteryear's chiropractor did not have to consider this in their clinical protocols. This world is so toxic now that there are reasons to try to figure out how to avoid these things. So that's a lot of the chit-chat in the office. We talk about how to avoid these things, what are better solutions. And then if you get some of these guys into your body, how do you get rid of them? Things like, cranking up your glutathione, undenatured whey protein, N-acetylcysteine, infrared saunas, and all those other things. Why are we here? In my mind, the reason we're here, if you guys can see this, if we ask, why are we chiropractors? I think the answer, in my mind most recently, I found it on the front page of USA Today this year, January 13th of 2010. There's an article right here in the front that says this: in our country, America, that the seniors in America take lots of drugs. They did a survey, so you can't survey all Americans. What they do is they take a big chunk and they survey them, and then they extrapolate the information to the population at large. In the study that they did, 2010, they were unable to find a single senior citizen in our country who was drug-free. As Brian was telling his stories about the purses and the pockets and all the pill bottles. And by the way, they're looking only at prescription drugs. They're not even considering the over-the-counter guys. Now look at these numbers. Why are we here? Did you know that 23% of American seniors are swallowing 1 to 3 different prescription drugs per day? Get a load of this. 46%, that's just under half of American senior citizens, are swallowing between 4 and 9 different prescription drugs per day. Did you know on top of that, another 25% of our seniors in our country are swallowing between 10 and 19 different prescription drugs per day? Think of that. Our intake form has 10 slots for what drugs are you on. How often people have to get a second page? There's not enough there. 6% of American seniors are taking more than 20 different prescription drugs per day. There has to be a different answer, a different way, a better way. So my job, at least in part, is to share this with you. By the way, if any of you intend to run that down, you get any public library or even online, USA Today, January 13th of 2010. We're going to look at a different way of doing stuff. And as we get ready to do that, chiropractic, 33 principles.